Alright, welcome back guys. Today what we're going to do is go through my Guardian climb from this season. This was a couple days ago, so the ranks might have slightly changed. But these are the matches where I was able to win and climb up from, you'll see, like the mid-16s to 17. And that is a bunch of cats fighting. So I do Hathor first pick as a rule. There's a couple of reasons for it, and I'll get into it, but it's just, she's so good. Let's pause it here. So, Hathor first pick, why? You got to break up Ganny Hathor. If you want to face Ganny Hathor, you're basically giving yourself a high chance to lose. Maybe 80%, something like that. It's really hard to beat Ganny Hathor. So, you're going to face it a lot because it's a high success rate when it goes through. So, if you can break it up, you should. And if you can break it up on your first pick, easy, you know? So it's really nice to break it up right away. And it also happens that Hathor is a really good unit to use independent of any other unit. So I lock her down first. Every time I have first pick, I never face Ganny Hathor, which helps my win rate. And when I have Hathor, if they don't pick quite right around her, then I have a really good chance to win. How this draft went. They picked a couple of interesting units. When I saw the Dark Sekhmet, whatever the name is, Nephthys, you know it's going to be an immunity game, because you in general want to let her stay if you can, because she doesn't really do much on her own, and if you can use immunity to get out of her shenanigans, then you're in really good shape. So I dropped an immunity unit, dropped Tyrannus, just because Tyrannus is really good, and it gives me options against some counterplay they might use, like Daphnis and stuff like that. Tyrannus is really nice against that. Then they went double fire, which makes sense, because I was already double wind. The Perna is not really a big issue these days. It can kind of do some stuff, but against a Tyrannus Veligul, like, not a big deal, I don't think. And then the Chiwu is only there to support Nephthys, right? That is the only reason Chiwu is there. Nephthys, he knows, going into immunity is useless, and so he's like, okay, I gotta clear the immunity, and then Nephthys like crazy. I pick the second immunity and Bulwark. Bulwark's not the best play into him, because he only shows one buff in the Triana. But Bulwark's really nice for me because I'm now playing 3 buffs, so I'm going to be able to activate him quite a bit. He finishes with a Force Ban Leona, which is a really nice option for him to have. I ban the Leona because I don't see a great way for me to kill it. I'd have to Bulwark it a couple times, and with the shield and stuff, it's really, really tough. You have some options, but no defense break against Leona is bad. Yeah, it's just bad, so had to ban it. So I was like, okay, we'll face this and we'll see how we go. We've got 2 immunity cleansers, so we should be in pretty good shape against that Nephthys. Or at least in as good a shape as we could be with this configuration in this match. So he gets the strip. He does the Nephthys things. Pretty good damage on the Perna. And then looks like a damaged Triana. And we get 1 proc, and then we're feeling great. So we're going to speed it up a little bit. So we heal up with the Bulwark, and now we're cruising. We're looking really nice. We've got everything we want: damage, mitigation, permanent immunity, and healing through the Bulwark. So that's pretty much the end of that. And it was one of those things where he'll get first turn, he'll get his combo off with the Nephthys, but I've got 2 opportunities to proc into saving myself, basically. So his goal is to try to continue control me and kill one of my safety units. He probably shouldn't let them both through, but he didn't have a great answer to the Hathor either, and so he'd just get Hathor on the other hand. So that was how that one went. Really, I think his biggest problem was Perna there, because Perna didn't support his mission, right? Perna brought the damage, but it didn't do anything other than damage. All right, we'll pause right here. So the issue with Perna was if he had some sort of CC to back it up, because he was doing a strip, like even an Okeanos would have been really nice. A Ganny would be really, really nice. Then he could have maybe let through the Hathor. I don't know. That'd be my take on that. All right, we face a Guardian player here. I first pick Hathor, as per usual. He picked 2 AoE-ish units in the Succubus and the Wunsa. So to me, that says weird. It's kind of weird. The Succubus without the Hathor is kind of weird because the sleep isn't quite as good. But the Wunsa says I'm trying to do AoE control-y type things to you. So that's my read. So in response to that, I pick my 2 anti-AoE things: the Triple Revenge Verd and the Diana. You know, you do AoE, they respond really well to those. And then he said, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do AoE because he knows. So he went single target, which is really smart. He went into the Daphnis and the Sierra, both single target, gives him first turn. I followed that up with the Amelia pick is kind of awkward for me. I'm not sure why I picked that one because it doesn't quite gel, but I think the Barbara's not a bad pick into his double fire, and then he picks further fire into it, so I know that I'm not going to get to play with Barbara because he tripled down on fire. Yep, Barbara's banned. I banned the Daphnis because I don't have a great response to a turn 1 kill, and I'm not sure that Sierra can get a turn 1 kill as well as the Daphnis, so I went with that. That may have been a mistake, but I think I probably lose my Hathor turn 1 if I let that Daphnis through. So there's my Revenge Verd getting some work in, which is really nice. Catch a bomb, which is unfortunate. Caught me in between immunities. And then Diana's getting to work. Doing tons of damage. My Diana is very damage heavy. Verd's still helping me cycle. The longer you can keep Verd in a match, the better your chance of winning. But we already lost our Water Unicorn, which is unfortunate. But losing the Water Unicorn isn't the worst thing in the world. It makes these fire units really tricky. But really, I probably shouldn't have brought the Water Unicorn. There's not enough that he's bringing to the table in terms of control that needs to be stopped. I probably should have brought something with a little more impact on this match. Even a Ganny would have been smart, because he's not showing any immunity. But we're feeling kind of okay, and then that's when the match turns. We're like, oh, he killed all my options. And I let it play out, but yeah, we're done here. He's got the Antares who can self-heal and do tons of damage, and usually are built pretty tanky. So, close for a while. I think ultimately my mistake was bringing the Water Unicorn, so there's a loss. And it's little things like that. Like, you get a unit off the last match who performed so well, and you're like, oh, I'll bring that unit again. And then it's the wrong spot the next time, you know? All right, so this draft, Hathor first pick, as per usual. He picked my second and third pick, which I almost always pick, the Veligil Tyrannus. I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of know what works well against those. So I brought the Verd, because turn cycling works really well against bruisers. And I brought the Bulwark, because he's showing double buffers. And if he can bring the buffers, I'm definitely going to bring the Bulwark. Oh, I guess I should continue. Then he brought double water into my fire. So he's leaving the Verd is what I'm reading there. So I brought Diana, which is fantastic against those, and I think Barbara would perform really well against them as well. Give me a little turn cycling, do great things to the Veligil, and he last picked the Monkey, which is okay, but I don't want to deal with it against my team. All those revenges, it's really hard to kill. The HP lead, it has a lot of things going on, and it's another defense break. So I cleared that out. He cleared out the Hathor because he didn't feel comfortable with his defense to it. He only had 1 immunity. And here we go. All right, so we get a nice counter there. We do not pick up the defense break, which is great. And my Diana starts going bonkers. Nice counter there from Verd. Let's slow it down a little bit. And then once Bulwark starts stabilizing, you're in a pretty good spot. And I'm using first skill here to get as much healing as I can, because if I can keep Verd alive for 1 extra turn through using first skill, it's worth it. Still getting nice revenges. See, that I think was a misplay on my part, using second skill for damage. I should have used first skill. Doesn't end up ultimately mattering because he dies, but I think that was a misplay on my part. Getting some pretty good damage into the Vigor, but not quite enough. Giving that Druid extra turns is sadness. And I'm feeling pretty good here, but I'm behind, you know, and he's got the tankiness, he's got the heals, and Bulwark's a little bit slow on the heals, so you have to really be able to protect your team to make Bulwark work. I mean, we're still kind of here. Getting a little laggy on my end. But this is feeling like a loss to me. I mean, Diana's going to have to do a lot. But we do get the both water units down. Just that Diana has not enough gas, and he's not going to buff at all to deny by Bulwark. With me not having a buffer. And I used his skill on a 4-stack, more just to see if it would do enough, but no. Never use it on a 4-stack is the reminder I get every time I try that. All right, so another loss. You're going to lose a lot in RTA. It's not Arena, it's not Giants. You're going to lose a lot. And all you can do is try to minimize you being the reason for your own losses. So you have full control over the picks. You have control over how you rune and what synergy you go for. So you have to be responsible for as many wins as possible. There's some losses that there's nothing you can do. Let's look at this draft. So Bastet first pick is almost always some sort of cleave. So I don't go Hathor right away because Hathor against a cleave is sometimes okay, but not always. I want to feel him out a little bit, see what kind of thing he's doing. So I go with the Tyrannus, of course, which is very anti-cleave, and I think Veligil is fairly anti-cleave as well. Most cleaves have some sort of wind component. So maybe not the best pick, but if I went like Perna and then the Druid right away, he might have pivoted into something that exploits the Perna, right? Whereas if he continues with the cleave, I'm still okay with Vela Tyrannus as my 1-2. That's why I didn't go full anti-cleave. Or I could have gone maybe Vanessa Tyrannus would have been a nice 1-2. I don't know if the Veligil pick was as good right away. All right, then he goes his second bar booster and the Lucian, so I'm feeling really good about my first 2 picks against that Lucian. And with the cleave, you only ever have to deal with like 2 to 3 damage dealers, right? So if you can overload against one of them, ban another one, and then you're only dealing with 1 damage dealer against your whole team, is how you deal with cleaves. So I double down with the Perna Vanessa, which does not care about Lucian at all, and basically dare him to pick something that can somehow overcome, 3 revives in a Veligil. So that's where I'm at. He picks the Elucia, which usually signals slow cleave because it's a slow unit, but it's a nice little damage unit that also has a lot of support. And then he goes with the anti-revive unit, which as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, he's trying to take away my advantage. So that's probably my ban. I finish up with a Barbara, seeing maybe I can steal first turn. And here we go. Because he has no speed lead. I have a speed lead and a fast Barbara. So he is faster than my Barbara, so that's faster than 307. So that's how he wins. I mean, he's pretty quick, right? And he boosts into a secondary boost, and then here we go. Here's the Elucia. He gets a stun and a defense break onto my Reviver, which is fine. Here comes the Amp. Not too shabby. I mean, it's a ton of damage, 12 per card, but everybody's fine, We've got multiple Revivers. My Beast Rider dismounts. Like, we're feeling good here. We're going to kill that Elucia first because we're confident against the Lucian. And then we've got the Revive on the Barbara. If they happen to kill it, she'll just come back with her mount, and we know we won, right? We successfully tanked out that cleave. This is an instance where Perna's negatives are all strengths. Like, I don't have to worry about bringing control. What I need to bring is the ability to never die and a little bit of heals. And that's what Perna does really, really well. So that's why Perna's here. So as you climb, you have to be able to counter cleaves from picking first and picking second. You won't always win them, but you have to have a plan. So that's what I do. You got to have some sort of plan to counter cleaves. Otherwise, you're going to get cleaved. And those are automatically losses that bring you down. Whereas cleaves should be as close to free points as you can get. And by free points, I mean you should have like an 80% win rate. Because you know what they're trying to do. And you know their weaknesses. And there's lots of monsters that can exploit them. Cleaves are not in a good place right now in the meta. Because there's so many ways to beat them. When the Beast Riders came out, when Tyrannus came out, I mean, cleaves are in a really tough spot. So you gotta win those cleaves. All right, this draft, Hathor first pick. He took my Tyrannus, which is a bummer because of course I'd want the Tyrannus, and he picks the Jaeger, which is just an all-purpose great damage dealer. It's hard to deal with, but you just gotta play really careful around it. Another great unit. Okay, so then I go Vela Sierra because bombs are a great way to kill it. I'm not sure if the Sierra was the best pick there, but bombs are pretty good against it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's a wrong pick looking at it now. Then he picks Josephine and the Antares. The Antares against the double wind with no Diana is a little bit funky, but that's okay. And then he picks the Josephine against the Hathor. So I'm like, is he going to let me have Hathor? Probably, because he took the unit that can't be CC'd in the Jaeger, and then he brings Josephine. So that means I'm getting Hathor. Him picking Antares is like free food for Bulwark, right? Because Antares can't control his buffs, and it's 2 buffs every time. So I picked the Bulwark into the Antares all day. It's just such a great counter. And then the Vigor, I needed more sustain as well, because he's showing sort of a sustain heavy comp. And the Vigor will help me against the crits, give me a little bit of healing, and a defense break. And he follows up with the Molly. I banned the Jaeger just because I think it's the biggest source of my problems. He has no defense break, so I'm not super worried about the other units just sniping me out. But yeah, that Jaeger is going to be trouble long term. The Molly's also going to be trouble, but the Jaeger's bigger trouble. And he banned out my Vigor. So I'm feeling pretty good here. I feel like it's a pretty good little comp I got here. We miss on the Josephine, which would proc out of it anyway, and then we just start chomping into her health with the Bulwark. I mean, the bombs, the bulwark. We're feeling really nice about this Josephine while they're sitting in this big sleep. I mean, the Molly's going to keep some sustain going, but ultimately, we've got so much momentum. I mean, we put like 10, 12 turns into that one unit while he did nothing. So that's the power of Hathor, you know? And then we're going to start eating that Molly, because the sooner we can get down that Molly, the better everything's going to be. Josephine's back. We eat all her health again, and now she's gone. As soon as you get the res off the Tyrannus, you're in really good shape. I'm trying to get this defense buff off the Tyrannus, because if you can get the defense buff off him, he doesn't threaten as much as he would otherwise. Nice big heal off the Bulwark. You can see the Bulwark's working really well with the Hathor, because we're in full control here. The Bulwark is able to kind of on pace get his heals in. It's when they have too much burst that the Bulwark suffers. And I've considered putting Bulwark on Violent, but it's hard to pull the trigger on that one. All right, next up. Against Versace. Fran first pick. We'll just go ahead and let the picks go, and then we'll talk. Okay, so this match is part of sort of a philosophical shift in these matches. I remember having a thought where I'm like, I'm going to do this more. So he first picks Fran. That does not mess with my plan, so I go with my immunity and Hathor, right? Then he goes turn 1-y with the Cichlid, and Daphnis. Those are turn 1 mess with you units. And I'm like, okay. So I go with the Tyrannus, because Tyrannus is awesome, against Daphnis. And I go with the Ganny, because the Ganny is great against reset. Because, you know, you reset something, Ganny's like, no, right? So I directly, in my mind, counter those two units pretty nicely. He responds with turn cycling, which I think is appropriate against my team, and Sierra, which is more of, I want to take turn 1, right? So when I assess his draft versus my draft, if I ban the Fran and he does not ban the Hathor, I win, because I've got control, right? So that's a risk that I think I'm willing to take. If he bans the Hathor, right, which I think he should in this situation, he's putting all his money on the Cichlid reset. If he bans the Hathor, I've still got a great team against what he's trying to do, and he has no sustain. So that to me is why I think I banned the Fran. Let's hope I actually do. Yeah. You know, it takes away his immunity and his sustain all in one, right? And I get to keep control against no immunity and sustain against no sustain. That's a great matchup for me. And he probably knows it. All right, so here's the Cichlid. Increases the cooldown on my Tyrannus, right? This is actually a really cool play on his part. I like this combo. And so what he does is he cools it down, and then he nukes it before I can refresh it. That's super smart, but I still feel good about this. It's just he got his big turn 1, and now it's my time. We've got the anti-crit against the Verd, which is another little counter there. And now we just Ganny Hathor, right? You know, if you let Ganny Hathor through, bad things happen. And these are bad things. I mean, I'm just taking every turn. We're going to kill all his threats. We took out his one killer, and now we're taking out the Sierra. I mean, Sierra has glancing and attack down. Those are bad things for Sierra. And then that's it. So my thought was that I hopefully will continue pushing is I have Ganny Hathor. I should Ganny Hathor, right? In the right situation, I tend to shy away from bringing the Ganny, but the Ganny with the Tyrannus Vela is very, very nice. So I should Ganny Hathor more. So I'm going to try to do that more, especially against resetters. So here's a nice example of the same team, right? If you're going to bring a resetter, I'm going to bring Ganny, and then you have to decide, do you ban the Ganny and bank on resetting the Hathor, which might control you, or do you ban the Hathor and your resetter is basically not at full strength because the Ganny's there? That's the situation I put him into. We're in the same spot where it's really hard to kill a Leona. People that have pulled force ban picks have such a great time of it because they more or less know what their team of 4 is going to be. So if they pick a team of 4 that is no good or isn't ideal, that's their fault because they should be able to get that team of 4 all day, right? And I feel like I banned the force ban because I don't have a great kill on Leona, and I have to face the rest of that mess. I don't want him to have double immunity and a reset, but I have to because I can't beat the Leona. I can risk it against this team, or I can lose late in the game against Leona. So when you talk about people getting carried by units, that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, if you have one force ban, you're going to get better teams on average. You're going to bring better teams, which means you'll win more with worse runes. And so the players that are fantastic have multiple force bands and have good runes, and they put you in an impossible spot every game, and that's how they win all the time. This guy, I mean, his only healing is Wusa. I've got 2 buff removers. The Veligil is kind of a soft one. I don't know if Escher is his best ban. I guess he's just trying to ban my sustain, which is not a bad idea, but I mean, I'm not going to defense break him, right, with his double immunity. All right, let's see how it goes. Yep, buffs up. We're going to try to split his immunity, right? He already used one. He hasn't used the second one, so we got to take the second one out of the match, and then we're on the path towards being able to Gani Hathor, right? That's what makes Gani Hathor so strong. Is every move you make is trying to put you in a better situation to lock out the game. And so he used his immunity, which he had to. I locked out the second immunity, and now I just got to wait the shorter immunity. Like, she turn cycles out of her own immunity so fast, right? And we were able to sleep 2 units, which is fine. You know, that's half his turns gone. And then we'll just work on the immunity that has a better cooldown, is the thought there. So that's why I'm working on the Liliana, I think? I forget the name. And I've got the damage for it. I just got to make sure it gets through before he can stabilize. We get our immunity up. We're still chipping away. His sustain is only Wusa, who is reset. And then we just reset the Vanessa, so we're feeling like we get the kill. And now we've won. We've reset one immunity. We killed the other one. That's Gani Hathor. Just brutally efficient when paired with the right units. I still should Gani Hathor more. I should Gani Hathor more and more and more if I want to win. I shy away from it. I've got the Hathor part down, but the Gani I shy away from. See? I shy away from it. But I think that's the right call. What I like about my team is I can flex into Gani Hathor, or I can flex into shields up, double immunity, exploit that, right? That, I think, is the strength. I've been looking for a flexible team that plays multiple styles pretty well. And I mean, they're very similar, but having those 2 options, almost always one of those 2 options is correct, I would say. It's very rarely that I want to take turn 1 nowadays. So it's kind of nice that I can do that. All right, this draft, he picks his double sustain right off the bat. Interesting. It's into Hathor, I guess, which is fine, but Molly doesn't protect you against Hathor, so I have to be able to kill through Molly if I'm going to fight that. Then I go with Velatranus, the normal damage dealing uber supports. And then he goes with the Gianna Sierra combo that everybody who has Gianna has. I mean, everybody has it. And it's great. It's super great. So I see what he's doing there. And I'm like, okay, so what am I looking at, right? After those 4 picks are down. I'm looking at 1 form of buff removal in the Gianna. And the combo probably shouldn't be allowed to stick around. The Gianna Sierra combo, probably not. But it might have to. So I go with the Bulwark against the Fran/Molly, and I've got buffs again, and the Amelia to give me 2 options to get out of that shenanigans. And he picks Diana last. I take out his AoE Stripper, because I think that gives me my best chance to win against the Sierra. His only damage in Diana. Well, Diana's damage too. So letting Diana through against my water is a little bit sketchy, but I felt like that was the better pick. Because I'm safe from start to finish, you know? His buff removal options are Diana and Molly first skill, which are not great. I buff up the defense here for damage. I don't need it for the cleanse, but I'm like, Sierra's in a weak spot, and you get a couple of windows against Molly's, and you got to take them, right? So moving into Veligil Tyrannus with defense buff, I feel fairly confident I can take half health. And we get it without even using the Tyrannus. And if you can sneak in and kill a damage dealer against a Molly team, that's fantastic. Look at that damage. Oh, we cut. That's so nice. And now my pony can be in blue form for the rest of the match because Sierra's gone. So I'll just hang out in blue form, and that Diana has some choices. And so he's like, nah. So he's done. He's like, no. All right, we're getting close. 1690. We'll go ahead and let this play out. And then we will pause. Same draft as last time for me. Interesting draft on his part. Assessing what he's doing here. He's trying to race me, which he'll win. I mean, he's got when you see Okeanos, Okeanos is, they're all pretty fast, so I know I'm going behind that. Okeanos Ganny's a nice little combo. Not as good as Ganny Hathor, but pretty good. And he takes the Ganny from me, which is absolutely correct. I don't know. Okeanos Ganny's pretty good response. I almost think Vela Ganny is a little bit stronger against Hathor, but I'm having trouble with it, so what do I know? Then he goes Fran Daphnis, which is his take first turn, right, with the Fran. Give him the speed buff, and the Daphnis are usually pretty quick as well. And then I go with my full don't mess with me Amelia Bulwark team, and he goes Odin last, which Odin I think is a poor pick for him. Odins in the right situation are super scary, but those situations are 2 buffers, right? You have to have 2 buffers to get 1 good turn of Odin. He has 1 buffer. He has 0 buffers. Odin is not Bulwark. Just because I have a lot of buffs does not mean you have a lot of buffs. You can't rely on an Odin against teams with buffs, because you're going to get 1 buff a turn at most. I can basically ignore that Odin if I want, or I can kill him first turn. So that resist was nice. I'm at 100% resist with my lead, so that's why I feel pretty confident against a Okeanos, which are usually built... They have to build accuracy and speed, and they usually don't have a ton of accuracy on their 2. So that was a calculated risk for me, but it paid off. And we control the Ganny, which is fantastic, which means we're going to get a full turn of Hathor unless that Ganny procs, which we've already put ourselves in a great spot to Hathor, and we cleared off the buff against the Daphnis. He goes on the Tyrannus, which works great for him, but it doesn't really matter to me because I get 2 lives. We're going to start eating that Odin because he can't do horrible things just yet. Until he gets 5 stacks, he can't do horrible things. We've already taken all the threat of Odin. Odin's threat is gone. Daphnis has done his 3rd skill. Daphnis is done. We have permanent immunity. Oki is done. And all we got to deal with is a Ganny who are about to Hathor. I mean, this is textbook turn 2, take control, right? I mean, things are just going great. Everything is going great. Everybody goes to sleep. And here's the thing, like, now we can do whatever we want. We can kill whatever we want. We're going to still get that Odin because we have a buff remover in Bulwark. Oh, look. He took my revive. I take it back. He's stunned. And we're feeling pretty here. We take out his first damage dealer. We have 1 more damage dealer. The Ganny has not been able to do a double Daphnis or anything like that. So we're looking really, really nice here. And we Hathor again, and it's over. Just a matter of making it official. So a lot of little things happen there in that the comp I brought is pretty stable in a lot of situations, so even if you screw up on the picks, it'll bail you out by being so safe and versatile. That's kind of one thing that's happening. He didn't quite make the right comp out of his team. The Odin was a horrible mispick as a last pick. He was banking on getting the Fran because he's like, he won't let Daphnis and Ganny and Oki through. That's crazy, but no, like, I will absolutely let that through because it makes the Odin useless. Whereas leaving in Fran Odin is bad, right? Can't let that happen. All right, this looks like basically the same team on my side. And there's reasons why I went with it again. Some of the things we talked about, it's stable, it's well ruined. But if he goes Daphnis first pick, that's weird. I'm looking at that and I'm like, you making that call makes me less confident in your ability to make choices in the draft. Like, maybe it works for him, but like, Daphnis first pick is not great, you know? What if I went double water right away? He went quad fire, which is wild. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I'll take Hathor Vela. Let's see what you got against Hathor. He goes speed lead in the Wedgeat, which Wedgeat's cool. I would use Wedgeat very differently than the way he's using Wedgeat, but Wedgeat would be amazing for my comp. I'd be able to threaten turn 1. I would get defense buff. I would get turn cycling. Man, that'd be good. Anyway, so he goes Oki Wedgeat. I'm like, okay, so he wants first turn. That's fine. I go Tyrannus Bulwark because the Wedgeat is nothing but nonstop buffs. He knows at this point he's getting Wedgeat, and he probably knows at this point he's getting turn 1. That's what I'm telling him by picking the Bulwark. So he goes even more fire with a second resetter. Not a bad call with what I'm showing. And then the Leica for damage, and then I go Amelia. I in theory, give him too many things to deal with and hopefully put a stop to him taking control. He bans Amelia, which is absolutely the right call. It's water against all his fire. It's permanent immunity against his control. I have sustain. He has none, so he's got to try to take that away from me as soon as he can. The only problem for him is my sustain is water, and all his stuff is fire. So that, to me, is the issue. And then if he doesn't get the nice reset on Tyrannus, he gets Hathor. If he doesn't reset Hathor, he gets Tyrannus. So it's a tricky spot for him. Misses the reset. Same thing. It's 100% resist. So, you know, it'll resist sometimes. Not always, but it should resist sometimes. Good damage from the Leica. And almost, but not quite. But he gets a proc. So lucky him. But I'm still alive. Look at me. But he did reset me for 1 turn with that. But we get the heal with the Bulwark. And now we've got the res. We've weathered the big hits from everybody. We, excuse me, we tanked the Leica, we tanked the Daphnis, and now we're immune. So he's like, nah. Which is good. That's how I want to win. I want to win that way. So that is our final match. We got to Guardian with that win. And like I said, it was a couple days ago, but our win rate is roughly the same. I think it's up a little bit in the, high 50s. That won't last with Smurf Week, right? All the really amazing players come out and just play 12 games and get Guardian. But it's good for now. Good for mid-season. And, yeah, not a lot of people playing. Everybody's farming artifacts, so that's why the rank is so high for the score being so low. So that was a lot of talking about the thought process, the pick ban, why my team is constructed the way it is, how I try to exploit holes in the opponent's strategy, both in the pick ban and in the play phase. And that's how you play RTA, I think. That's how I play RTA. I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but that's how I try to win. All right, guys, that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.